Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Today we're going to make a Thanksgiving feast, start to finish. Oh yeah, and there's cookies. Y'all stick around. Hey, this is Victor with Your Best Body Blueprint, and I help you make the standard American diet keto and low carb. So what's on the menu today? Well, we're going to start out with a stuffing or dressing. We're going to do some carnivore mashed potatoes. And for the dressing and the mashed potatoes, of course, we've got to have gravy. We're going to do a mac and cheese. We're going to do a tater salad. And what's Thanksgiving without a turkey? Oh, and did I mention there's cookies? Let's get right into it, and I'll show you how to make this stuffing. Okay, so let me show you what we need to make this keto dressing. You're going to need some cornbread. I'm making half a batch of this today. I'm going to put the recipe for this half batch and the full batch down in the description for you. And I'll put the link to the cornbread recipe down below for you. You're going to need some butter. You're going to need your favorite keto bread. Now, it says right here, keto certified. There's really no such thing. I don't recommend eating that stuff very often, but around the holidays, because I like to eat this, and we tend to do sandwiches and things like that with leftovers. So we usually get it around this time of year, but I don't recommend keeping this all the time for sure. You're going to need some chicken bone broth. Now, I like this bone broth concentrate, as you know, so you can make your own, but you can use a carton also. You're going to need an onion. You're going to need eggs. You're going to need celery. And then for our seasonings, we're going to season this with parsley, some black pepper, some ground thyme. Now, you can use the regular thyme as well. A lot of times I'll have it out in my garden. I grow a lot of my own herbs, but I really like the ground thyme better for this recipe. Then you're going to need some sage. You're going to need some garlic powder, and you're going to need some salt. So I'm going to measure these out, and I'll show you how to put it together. So what I'm going to do here is start to melt this butter, and I'm going to saute the celery and onions right in here, get them a little soft, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So what I've done, I just have a bread pan here, and I've sprayed it with this avocado oil spray. And this is the one I use. I get this at Aldi. I've also toasted 2 slices of this bread. We're going to crumble that in. And I've diced that onion and diced that celery. So I'm going to take those over and saute those in the butter, get those real happy, and then we'll come back and start putting it together. Well, my butter is getting real happy over here, so what I'm going to do is bring over celery and onions and dump those right in. I really like these little cutting sheets like this. I'll put a link to those down below because it's real handy transporting stuff back and forth without having to bring a whole huge cutting board over. So I'm just going to let those work for a few minutes. Now, this is salted butter. I love using this Kerrygold salted butter, so I don't add any additional salt to this. But you could if you like it a little saltier. We're going to adjust for the seasoning a little bit later. Man, I just love that sound right there. So let these work for a few minutes, and I'll be right back. Now, these onions and that celery is getting real happy in here. So what I'm going to do is take these off the heat. I'm going to move over to where I have crumbled up the bread in a big mixing bowl. I'm going to pour all this together and add the spices in. So what I've done here is crumble the cornbread and the regular bread in here. I'm just going to bring these onions and celery in and dump them right in there. Then I'm going to grab my seasonings and put those in and stir it up. So I dump my onions and celery in. I'm going to go ahead and go in with the spice blend. I just mixed everything together. I'm going to mix this up, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a minute. I just gave that a little taste, and it is tasting pretty good. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of salt. I think that's the only thing it needs at this point. So I'm just going to add a little salt there. I'm going to beat the eggs, pour those in, kind of mix it up, and see what it tastes like them. And hey, if you don't like raw eggs, one of 2 things: get a new egg person, or you can just taste it like that and then readjust your seasonings when it comes out of the oven. I'm just going to dump the eggs in, and I'm going to start to stir it up. So let me incorporate these eggs first, and then I'm going to start adding a little bit of that chicken bone broth at a time until we get this saturated, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now I'm starting this half batch with about 3/4 of a cup, maybe a little more, of this bone broth. So I'm just going to pour about 1/4 of it in. That was more like a half. And I'm going to stir it up and see what kind of moisture level we have. You don't want any of the bone broth sitting in there, but you want it to be pretty well absorbed inside this dressing. And it's soaked that up pretty good. That's some thirsty dressing. So I'm going to go ahead and pour in about half of what I have left and stir it up. And let's see how it looks after this. All right, so I mixed that in. As you can see, I've kind of put it up on the side so you can see there's no moisture down there. You got a little bit right there. So you want it a little bit more than that, but you don't want any of the liquid sitting in there. So I'm going to add the rest of this, incorporate it in. I think it's going to be perfect. Let me stir this up and we'll see if it's right or if we're going to need more bone broth. So that looks pretty much perfect. I'm going to pull this back up on the side just to make sure. But it's pretty much moistened all the way through. I know a lot of people hate that word moist, but I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to tilt this over. You got just a tiny bit of the bone broth running. So that's perfect. This is what you want. I'm going to put it in this bread pan, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I've got it in my bread pan. I'm just going to kind of flatten that out a little bit. And for this half batch, I'm just going to check it. So I'm going to put that in the 350 oven, and we will check on it in just a few minutes. Oh, and by the way, I tasted for the seasoning on this. I ended up adding a little more salt, a little more sage, and a little more thyme. So I'm going to leave the recipe the way it is in case you don't like those ingredients, but you may want to adjust it yourself. So I'm going to cover this with foil, and because it's a half batch, I'm going to cook it for 20 minutes. Then I'm going to take the foil off and finish it uncovered in the oven. You do the same thing with the full batch, but you're going to cook it for about 30 minutes in the oven and then uncover it for about 15 more. So let me get this in there. I'll show you what it looks like after 20 minutes. So I'm just going to remove the foil now. And we'll continue cooking it for another 10 to 15 minutes. So that's what our dressing looks like when it's done. I'm going to go ahead and cut a little slice here. Just get it all around the edges. I'm going to take this piece out, put it right here on the plate. And I just like to finish it with a little bit of this keto gravy. Or a lot of the keto gravy. That's really what I prefer. Next up on the menu are the most delicious potatoes that you'll ever eat. But what you're going to need is some Parmesan cheese. You're going to need mozzarella, and you're going to need the fresh mozzarella, not the kind that you cut off the block, because it needs to have a lot of moisture in it to make this recipe work. You're going to need some cream cheese. You're going to need butter. You're going to need egg whites. You're going to need beef gelatin powder and toasted beef gelatin powder. You're going to need white pepper. You're going to need some salt and some garlic powder. You're going to need sour cream, and you're going to need egg white powder. Now I know these all seem like really weird ingredients, but trust me, once you try it, it tastes just like mashed potatoes, and you're going to love it. So for this recipe, I'm going to use my New Wave induction cooktop. I love to use this because I can control the heat really to the exact temperature that I want it to be. So I'm going to put this one between medium, low, and medium. You want to make sure and cook it on a low temperature either way so that the egg whites do not brown. You want them to stay white so that it keeps that mashed potato color. So we get all the egg whites in there. And then I'm going to start the seasoning. So I'm going to put in the garlic powder and the salt. And you just put that right in there while it's cooking. And we'll mix it around just a little, just to make sure it's fully incorporated in through there. Now, you can melt the butter before you start this process, but I found out that it works just fine by doing this, mixing it up. And just keep mixing it until that salt and the garlic is fully incorporated in there. And then once it started warming up just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and add that butter in. And we're going to let that butter melt. So it'll take just a little bit of time because, of course, we're using a lower temperature. And I'm just going to break that butter up a little bit just to make it melt a little bit faster. You just don't want to leave it sitting for a long time. You're going to melt that butter, and what you're going to be left with is the butter solids and the cooked egg whites. So now we're just going to let that sit for a little bit to melt the butter. And as it goes down, I'm just going to use this spatula. And I do apologize for the blurriness of it. I've got to get a better camera, but right now I just kind of wanted to show you what it looks like. And I'm going to speed it up through this to show you what it looks like once it's cooked for a few minutes. So you can see those egg whites are starting to scramble up a little bit. So you just want to keep working with it like that. And just keep breaking them up and check out if you've got any liquid left in there like that. Then just break it up a little more and keep going until all that liquid is basically gone. So you can see right here, that's starting to look pretty good. You still got a little bit of liquid left in there, but not much, but we're going to go just a little bit longer. And so now, when you turn it up like that, there's hardly any liquid left, and that's when you're done with this part. And this is what it looks like when you're finished. Now I've already added in all of the ingredients to the blender. His video to show you how to do that. And you're going to want to open your blender every once in a while, scrape down the sides until you get that perfect texture. And at this point, you're going to want to taste them and see if you need to add any more salt. I like a little bit more salt in mine, so I added a little bit more. Now, one thing I do that Chris Cooking Nashville does not mention is I do like to put a little bit of black pepper in mine. So I'm going to transfer them to a bowl, add some black pepper, and a little bit more black pepper. And now they are perfect.
Now you got to have something to spoon over the top of all these dishes. This is what I spoon mine with. I do it by the cup. But hey, don't worry. It's low carb. Let me show you how to do that. You're going to need some butter. You're going to need some bone broth. And I make mine with this concentrate and water. You can get it in the carton as well. Or if you make your own bone broth, use that. You're going to need some onion powder. You're going to need some garlic powder. You're going to need some smoked paprika. And if you don't like the smoky taste, just use regular paprika. It's fine. But this smoked paprika really adds a depth of flavor to this gravy that I really like. You're going to need some xanthan gum. You're going to need some salt, either this Redmond's real salt or some pink Himalayan salt.
And you're going to need some black pepper. So I'm going to measure everything out, and I will show you how easy it is to make this keto gravy. Okay, I promised you an easy recipe, and this is it. You put the butter in the pot. You mix in all the seasonings and the xanthan gum, and then you're going to pour in your bone broth. Now all I'm going to do is put this on the stovetop, and the xanthan gum may clump up a little bit, but as we whisk it, it's going to get really smooth. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe right down below. So really all I have to do with this is just whisk this together. We're going to melt this butter. Okay, so now we got a proper boil here. We'll go ahead and stir this up. If the xanthan gum kind of congeals up, it's okay. It's going to cook out. Once it gets to this stage, I'm going to let it cook for 1 more minute, and I'm going to take it off the heat, and it will be ready. And so now I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to cover it until we're ready to eat it. All right, so let me get a little bite of this and see how it is. Let's try it out. Oh man. If you're liking these recipes, make sure you look right down here and hit that subscribe button. And then right beside it is that bell. The bell will make sure you get notifications anytime I upload a new video, so you won't miss one. Next up, I'm making my Nana's mac and cheese. It's a 100-year-old recipe that I was able to save and make low carb. This is what we're going to need to make this keto mac and cheese. You're going to need some butter. And the ingredients on this recipe are very important. Get the best that you can because there's very few ingredients. So all the flavors are really going to come out. The better the ingredients, the better the flavors. You're going to need a couple eggs, and these are local pasture-raised eggs. They're going to have a bright orange yolk, a ton of nutrition, and a ton of flavor. You're going to need extra sharp cheddar cheese. This is very important that you get this extra sharp kind because of the flavor you're going to need to bring out of this. Now, my Nana did not put salt or pepper when she wrote down this recipe because they always do it to taste. So I tried to put the amounts that I think you're going to need, but make sure you taste it and see what you think. You're going to need some pepper and then paprika. She always sprinkled the top with this paprika, so it made it look really nice. Also gave it a little bit of flavor. And of course, you're going to need some heavy cream. Oh, and I almost forgot the star of the show. Let's go over and grab this box. And let me show you my secret ingredient that helps make this low carb without having to eat cauliflower and pretend that it's macaroni. Let's do some real macaroni, y'all. This is the box that contains the secret to my low carb keto mac and cheese. We should see what's in it. Let me show you these noodles. They're from the Great Low Carb Bread Company. They have a ton of different products, from their pastas to pizza crust, cookies, muffins. They have a lot. This one has 7 grams of net carbs per serving, which is a quarter of this macaroni and cheese. So these are delicious. I will put a link down below so you can order these. You'll be able to get them before Thanksgiving. They've told me that their lead time is really good. They know this time of year people are going to be wanting to make macaroni and cheese. Order some of these and try it out for yourself. I've tried a lot of these, and this is definitely my favorite. It's a real legit macaroni noodle. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want me to help you make all your favorite standard American foods keto, low carb, and delicious. So let me go ahead and prep all these ingredients, and I'm going to show you how to put this awesome 100-year-old mac and cheese recipe turned keto together. I'm going to post a picture of her original recipe somewhere in this video so you can see the recipe in her writing. Anytime I saw something with that handwriting on it, I knew it was going to be good, whether it was a recipe or if she sent me a card. I really miss her a lot, but hopefully she's looking down and it'll make her proud that I'm sharing her recipe with so many people. The modifications I had to make was her original recipe called for margarine, and of course I'm using butter. And instead of the evaporated milk, which has got a lot of carbs, I'm using heavy cream. Now what I'm going to use to put this in today is about a 9.5-inch pie plate. Ideally, you want to use a 9x9 square for this one. And I'm going to put in the description a recipe to double it, or you would use a 9x13 casserole dish. Nana used to call this macaroni pie. Today it's actually going to look like a pie. Y'all leave me a comment if you've ever heard anybody call it macaroni pie before. But I'm just going to spray it down with some avocado oil, and I'm going to go over to the stove and start cooking my pasta to the package directions. Once your water comes to a rapid boil like this, we're going to pour in this macaroni. And you're going to want to stir this up a few times during this process. It's going to take about 11 minutes. It cooks a little bit longer than normal pasta because of the amount of protein in it. So just check it after about 10, see how it's doing, but I think 11 is a perfect time to boil this. And just give it a little stir every once in a while. You don't want this to stick together. And what you're looking for is you want it to be al dente. So when you take one out to try it, you want it to have a little bit of bite to it. You don't want it to be mushy and falling apart. So we'll check back after a few minutes and see how it's looking. Okay, so 11 minutes was perfect. I'm going to take this over to the sink and drain it. We'll let it sit there and drain just for a minute. Look at that. That's not cauliflower. That's the real deal noodles right there. Check that out. We'll come back and put it together. What we're going to do first is add in about half of this pasta into our pie pan, because we're making macaroni pie. Just going to kind of get that out like that. And I'm going to mix together the eggs, the milk, and the water. Go ahead and stir that up a little bit. And what I'm going to do, I melted this butter. It's a little hot. So I'm going to pour a little bit at a time in here just to cool it off a little bit. And then we'll put that to the side. We'll go ahead and dump in the spices into here as well. And all that is salt and pepper. The flavors of the ingredients really need to shine through. That's why I like this pasta so much. So we're going to take half of this cheese and sprinkle it all over here. And get that nice and even. And then we're going to take the other half and pour on just like that. Now I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees. That's what it's going to cook at. I'm going to put the rest of this cheese on there. And yeah, make sure you use a fresh block of cheese and grate it like this. That way you don't have those anti-caking agents in there. So what I'm going to do now is just combine all this together. We're just going to take this mixture and pour it all the way in like that. So I've got everything in there. I'm just going to sprinkle the top with paprika. We're going to put it in a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's done. We'll be right back. All right, so this is done. I'm going to pull this out. Wow, look at that. So let's try it out. So let me go right in here and get this little bit. That looks delicious. You see that crust right there? That's what you want on this traditional Southern mac and cheese. So let's try Nana's mac and cheese. Oh man. That's some traditional Southern mac and cheese. It is so good.
I'm also doing some tater salad, but there's no potatoes involved, and it's even more delicious.
So here's what you're going to need to make the potato part of this potato salad. You're going to need a full carton of egg whites. I get these at Food Lion. That is 32 ounces of egg whites. You can crack the eggs if you want to and separate them, but man, this sure is a whole lot easier just to pour them out of here. You're going to need some cream cheese. You're going to need some Kerrygold butter.
You'll need some fresh mozzarella. Make sure you get the fresh kind because you need the moisture in that to make this come together. You're going to need some salt. You're going to need some plain beef gelatin powder, unflavored. You're also going to need some toasted beef gelatin powder. I've got some Parmigiano Reggiano left over, so that's what I'm going to use. Normally I would use Parmesan. And in the original video, Chris even uses the Parmesan in a can, or as we like to call it, shaky cheese. So you can use that also if that's what you got. I kind of like to use the regular Parmesan and just grate it up. You're going to need some egg white protein powder. And the last thing you'll need is a little bit of heavy whipping cream just to get the consistency right. I've got everything measured out here. Of course, the egg whites, you're going to use the whole carton, so that one's measured. About 3 tablespoons of butter, a couple ounces of the cream cheese, 4 tablespoons of the egg white powder, about 3 ounces of the mozzarella cheese. The salt, I'm just going to throw a pinch in there, so no need to measure that. The teaspoon-ish of Parmesan cheese, and the heavy whipping cream, we're not going to measure because we're just going to add a little bit of that at a time to help this mixture blend up. So let's go over and get started. I've got my butter in the hex-clad pan. I've got this on about a medium heat. I'm just going to start mixing this around, coat the bottom of this pan. This thing does not stick. This is the nicest pan that I've ever had. It doesn't stick at all. I'm just going to get a nice even coat of that butter all over the pan. And make sure you check out Chris's video for some more in-depth instructions, but you can probably follow it pretty easy from this. Now that the butter is melted, I'm going to go ahead and pour in this entire container of egg whites. And I left it out for probably 10 minutes or so, just to let it get almost to room temperature. That's just going to help it cook just a little bit faster at a little bit lower heat. You want to make sure you don't brown these. It's not as important on this recipe as it is the mashed potatoes, because if you're doing mashed potatoes, you definitely don't want them to be brown. This, you're going to have a sauce over the top, so it's not quite as important, but the less brown, the better. Just going to move this around a little bit in the pan, just until it starts cooking. So while the eggs are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and add in everything into the Ninja and put in the cream cheese, and put in the mozzarella. I've got both gelatins together. The non-toasted on top and the toasted on the bottom. Just going to put a little bit of salt in there. Then I'm going to put in the Parmesan cheese. And so then I'll be ready. As soon as the eggs are done, we're going to put the eggs right in on top of that. And then we'll start combining it before we cook it. Now we got some action going on. These egg whites are starting to cook a little bit. You can see a few little pieces swimming around in there in that butter. Yeah, those things are happy right now. I'm going to let it cook a little bit longer, let it tighten up a little more, and then we're going to mix it up. So these are tightening up a good bit now. You can see a lot of cooked egg. I'm just moving it around to keep it from browning anywhere. And as this comes together a little more, I'm going to start breaking it up into little chunks. Let it get nice and dry in the pan. I'll show you what that looks like when it happens. Now the eggs are coming together real nicely. As you can see there's still some liquid in there. We'll cook all that out. I want these to be as dry as they can possibly be before we put them in the blender and blend them up. So while those eggs are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and preheat the oven to 275. It's going to cook low and slow. So what we're going to need to finish Nana's tater salad is some celery. You're going to need some sweet gherkins. No sugar added, of course. This one's sweetened with Splenda. The other gherkins have a ton of sugar in them. And this one has none. So much better choice. This is how we can make this recipe still and keep it keto. You're going to need 2 hard-boiled eggs. You're going to need a batch of my Duke's mayonnaise. We're going to use about a cup of that. You're going to need some yellow mustard. I just get this kind at Walmart. It's one of the few things that companies just can't really mess up and squeeze carbs into. 0 carb, clean ingredients. One day they'll probably end up adding sugar to this, but for now it's still good. You're going to need some pimentos. Those are sliced. We're going to dice them. And you're going to need some fresh cracked pepper.
I've almost cooked out all the liquid out of here, so that's looking really good. Another thing you can observe is when they stop smelling like eggs cooking and they smell more like butter, then you know you're almost there. It really doesn't have much of an eggy smell anymore. So now that these are good and dry, I'm just going to put them right in the blender on top of everything else that we put in there already. And I'm going to take them over to the Ninja and I'm going to blend this up. And we're going to make the potatoes for Nana's tater salad. We got a full blender here. I'm going to put the lid on it. I lost this little plastic thing somewhere along the way, so I usually just get a paper towel, put over the top of it. I'm going to blend this on low, and I'll show you what it looks like. This is the best blender. I love this thing. I'm going to turn the power on. I'm going to put it on the dough setting, which is like the low. It's just going to start working this and incorporating all this together. It's going to get to a mashed potato consistency. Then we're going to take it out and I'm going to fold in the egg white powder. So I'll let this go for a few minutes and I'll be right back once this is fully incorporated. What I'm going to do is add just a little bit of this heavy cream just to help things out a little. Maybe a tablespoon. If you heard how the motor changed there, that's just going to help work all this together. In a second, I may need to take the top off and push that down in there, but this Ninja does a really good job of kind of pulling everything in. You can see it working right there. So it may end up grabbing this and bringing it down in. We'll see. This is all moving and shaking in there, so I'm going to go up one more level. See how that's working in there? It's like a tornado in there. Pulls everything to the middle. Brings it down through there. It's going to come out perfect. I only added a tablespoon of heavy cream in there. If you can see this texture, it's kind of like a paste, but it's super smooth. And that's exactly what you want. So I'm going to transfer all this to a mixing bowl and show you the next step. Hey, if you like videos like this and you're not subscribed, subscribe down here and ring that bell. If you do a low carb or keto diet, I think there's some things on my channel that you're going to love. I transferred this to a bowl. So what I'm going to do now is just fold in this egg white powder a little bit at a time. So I'm going to do about a quarter of it, maybe about a tablespoon. So I'm just going to kind of fold it in like that a little bit at a time. Press it down to make sure that powder gets in there really well. Then I'll add in a little more. And do the same thing. Just make sure that's really well incorporated. So fold it over, press it down. We don't want any air bubbles. And we want to make sure that egg white powder is consistently through this mix. Now all that egg white powder is incorporated into here and we're ready to put it on a baking sheet. As you can see, I've got my favorite mixing bowl here. If you watched any of my other videos, you may remember the story about this mixing bowl. So I hope at least one person was paying attention. So if you were, you know the story of this bowl, leave me a comment down there. We're going to take this over. I've got a parchment paper lined baking sheet. We're going to put it on there and spread it out. I'll just give it one final stir just to make sure that egg white powder is incorporated in there. Now I'm going to pour it all on the middle of this parchment paper. And if you saw my other video, you'll know my parchment paper trick of how to get it to stay flat, not roll up on you. Try to keep it all together in the middle. So what you're trying to do here is spread it out to about a ½ inch thick, because we're going to bake this. It's going to become our potatoes for Nana's tater salad. It's going to bake kind of like in a big block like this. We're going to cut it into little squares. And then the other thing you want to do here is just get your edges right. You don't want it being thin on the edge where it might burn. So just try to tighten it up like that. I'm going to throw this in a 275-degree oven, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. We're going to go 30 minutes on this. And we'll take it out after 30 minutes, let it cool, and we're going to cut it into taters. So I've got all my ingredients chopped for Nana's tater salad dressing. So I've got ½ a cup of celery. I've got a cup of the sweet gherkins, 2 hard-boiled eggs chopped, and 2 tablespoons of pimentos. I'm going to put those in the mixing bowl and then add in my other ingredient. Nana used to can her own pickles. My papa would grow the cucumbers and then she would can every fall. She had the best pickles. I feel fortunate that I have found these to at least get close. So I've given that a good mix. Now I'm going to add in a cup of my Duke's mayonnaise. How creamy that is. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of mustard. And she said a dash of Thousand Island dressing. I'm using this G. Hughes sugar-free Thousand Island dressing. A lot of times I'll make it myself, but I also keep this just to make it easy. So a dash, how much is a dash? I'm going to say about that much. Then the last thing I'm going to do is just some fresh black pepper. So that's it. I'm just going to mix this together, and we're going to wait for the taters to be ready. So when this comes out of the oven, this is what it looks like. It should have a nice golden brown color. And when you touch it, it should feel like a nice fork tender potato. So we're just going to slice it all the way down the length through the entire sheet. We're going to get some uniform pieces going on there. Basically, whatever size you like your potatoes and potato salad to be, that's the same thing you want to do with this. So just slice it all the way down, just like that, nice and slow, and cut it into bite-sized pieces. When you're all done, this is what it should look like. And now it's time to combine the taters with the tater salad dressing. So I just try to take the sheet like this and dump it into the bowl. And, well, I guess it was kind of a fail. But guess what? If you spill some, pick it up, throw it right in there, you're good to go. This is how Nana's tater salad looks like when it's done. It is the most delicious tater salad you're going to have, and I hope you enjoy it. And the way she always liked to finish this to make a nice presentation at the table was just sprinkle the whole top with some sweet paprika. We didn't have smoked paprika back then, so this is what she did. It gave it a nice flavor, but more importantly, it made it look absolutely fantastic. No Thanksgiving is complete without a turkey. If you don't have a smoker, don't worry. I'll show you the instructions in that to cook it in the oven or however you want to cook it. And it will come out perfect either way. But if you like the smoky taste, my electric smoker does a fantastic job. What we're going to do to get this ready, I'm just going to rub it down with a little bit of olive oil. And then I'm going to put my spice mix on it. I'll put a link down below to the spice mix. Just make sure you get the oil all in there. When we put it in the smoker, we're going to put it in like this so it kind of stays together like that. And I'm going to take my spice mix. Just put that all over the top like that. Get nice and seasoned. And like I said, if you watch my KFC chicken video, you know about this spice blend. It's great with everything. But I'm going to put the link to that in the description so that you can make this. We'll go ahead and take this right out to the smoker. So for this turkey, I've got my smoker preheated to 250 degrees. Now this is a Masterbuilt electric smoker. I love it. The only bad thing is the panel here doesn't work. It's preheating now to 250. And as soon as it gets there, we're going to put this turkey breast in. So this is the Expert Grill thermometer. So I'm going to put this probe in right into the middle of the meat. And you can see it's like 52 degrees now. I'm going to open the smoker up, put it in, and I'm going to leave the thermometer outside and just put the meat inside. It's nice and smoky in there. I'm going to close it up just like that. I'll set this on top, and what we're looking for is a temperature of 165 internal. So what we want to do once this gets to about 100 degrees internal is put my little bacon quilt over the top. Hey, if you like turkey and you want to try this recipe, like this video down here and make sure you subscribe to my channel. So what I've done here is just woven 6 pieces of bacon together to form this little quilt. I'm just going to put it over the top of this turkey breast and let it finish smoking. So I'll just put that bacon right on top like that. We're going to let it finish smoking
just like that. So it's at 106 right now. We're going to let it get to 160 because it's going to continue to cook just a little bit, and we want the internal temperature to be 165 when we serve it. So we'll let it get to 160 and we'll pull it out. All right, so we're at 160 degrees internal temperature. So I'm going to take this out, put it right there with this little bacon blanket, and we will take it in. We're going to let it rest for about 10 minutes before we serve it. So I'm going to slice this turkey with this little blanket of bacon. Oh man, look at that. Look at that. I've got to throw that little bacon on there. Let me slice another piece. That's perfect. It's going to have a great smoked flavor, and you're going to love serving this at your Thanksgiving dinner. If you're liking these recipes, make sure you look right down here and hit that subscribe button, and then right beside it is that bell. The bell will make sure you get notifications anytime I upload a new video, so you won't miss one. Did I mention cookies? Let me show you these cookies that are not the normal, so surprise your guest on Thanksgiving with these delicious cookies. We're going to need a stick of Kerrygold Irish butter, or use your favorite butter, but man, it's hard to beat this stuff. You're going to need 2 large eggs. You're going to need some vanilla extract. Make sure you use the real stuff. You're going to need some baking powder. You're going to need some unsweetened coconut flakes. This is going to make the texture of the oatmeal in this recipe. You're going to need some of your favorite brown sugar sweetener, but not sugar. I really like this Splenda brand because the ingredients are so good now. You're going to need some almond flour. And last but certainly not least, you're going to need a pack of this Keto Chow butterscotch. This stuff is great. It's going to add some protein to it and a delicious flavor. Now, optionally, you can also get some Lily's butterscotch chips. I'd use about a half a cup in this recipe. I'll measure everything out, and I'll show you how to put it together. So the first thing we need to do is preheat our oven to 350. Take this stick of butter, put this on low. I got to cream this butter. I'm going to go ahead and add in sweetener, add in the vanilla. So I'll add in 1 egg. I'm going to combine this all together, and then we'll add the other egg in. I'm just going to go real low on this. So it's like that. I'm going to go ahead and add in the other egg. And I'm going to mix this for a while until it is pretty smooth. And you can also use a kitchen mixer for this. I've got a KitchenAid, but I hate pulling it out for something small like this. So I just like using this hand mixer. So the next ingredients we're going to mix in is coconut flour. Now I've got this coconut that I've got chopped pretty fine to basically mimic the texture of oatmeal. So we're going to leave that out until the last minute. I'm going to add in baking powder. And then our star ingredient here, which is the butterscotch Keto Chow. And pour that in as well. Now, like I said, I'm not sponsored by Keto Chow or anything, although if they would like to, hey, I'm in. I love some Keto Chow. So I'll just mix the coconut in here. And just stir until it's pretty well combined. So I think that's pretty well combined. What I'm going to do is just take a baking sheet with some parchment paper. So just spray it down with avocado oil. And I'm just going to take a little spoon like this. Get about a spoonful. I'm going to put it right on here.
Okay, so this is what we have. I have 15 cookies here. I'm going to throw these in the oven at 350 for 15 minutes. And we will check them out and see what they look like when they're done. All right, so it has been 15 minutes. I'm going to get these bad boys out here. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take these off and put them on this cooling rack. So I'm going to let these cool for about 5 minutes, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm going to give one of these a try. Let me show you what the texture looks like. Man, that looks delicious. Let me try this out. Man, that is ridiculous. Y'all are going to love these. Hey, so I got to go eat all this food. If you want some other recipe ideas, I'm going to put a playlist right over there with a lot of different copycat recipes from your favorite restaurants. So make sure you check those out. After Thanksgiving's over, you'll definitely want to try some of those. I really appreciate all you guys and the support you give me on my channel, all your sharing, all your likes and comments on my videos. Y'all have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next time.